I think we're set. Hit the like and sub, everybody. I should try to drop that in my chat every time. Hit the like and sub. Even if you're on a stream that or a channel that you don't care for. Oh boy. Always. Just to support crypto at large. I gotta find the spaces. Crypto succeed, we succeed. Good morning. I hope my audio works today. Hey, good morning, Mando. How you doing?
I'm good, brother.
Good deal.
You guys are doing good today.
Yeah. I'm doing good. I'm glad my audio's working.
I'm gonna tell you one that's doing for your mom.
What's that?
I was just playing around about the whole your mom thing, dude. It's just like I'm starting to pull out the your mom jokes from like when I was a kid. It's hilarious.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. You mean like the size of the mom joke? That's how it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, like your mom's so ugly when she smiles, her face hurts.
Your mom's thighs are so big they each got their own zip code.
Oh my god! Your mom's so fat, her belt size is the equator.
All right, we better stop, man.
Yeah, Ben's gonna get mad.
Oh man. Wow, it was a good week. It was a good week. I think there'll be another good week coming up. It's every week's a good week, man. It's like we get
pTGC's ecosystem is a good week. I'd tell you that.
I love the speculation of crypto. I love the possibilities, the thought of things going where we hope they go. You know, I've just been living on hopium since I got into crypto. And of course, especially with Grace, because they're special.
I mean, your bags have blown up, man. That's not hopium. That's real. It's already happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because that is true. It has happened.
Yeah, I was also going to add in there, Banana. I wouldn't say you're just living off opium. You're one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in this industry.
100%.
Oh, thank you. Doing it for everybody, man, not just myself.
We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I do think you're very good at putting some of the responsibility on yourself. So I don't agree with that. I don't think you just rely on opium. I think we hope for the success of Pulse Chain, and we try to do what we can to support it, obviously. So there is some hope there, but I do think a lot of your success comes from hard work, not just hope.
Sure.
100%. That's my MO as well, man.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot you can do on your own, right? That for Mando too. Mando does a lot on his own. Banana does a lot on his own. Each individual can do tons and tons on their own. And then we can hope for the greater good of crypto, right? And also do our part, and then the greater good for ETH, Pulse Chain, etc. With adoption to those things above us, the outcome of pTGC is somewhat mind-blowing.
I know it. I know. It's exciting to think about. Well, this is related. It's good to have like a trip planned. Like say you're planning for a big trip, but it's a year out. You get to enjoy the thought of yourself going on that trip for the whole next year. They say it's very good for you because it gives you something to look forward to. And you get to enjoy, you probably get more enjoyment in all the months or all the time leading up to your big trip than you do actually on your 1 week trip that you got to take, you know, because every time you're slogging through the trenches, you're like, oh, you know, oh, am I ever going to get through this? Yeah. In 12 months, I'll be on my vacation and it helps you get through it.
You know, one thing I really enjoy also is looking back at it. So looking to the future at it is really, really fun. But I also think remembering like the memories that you've had with your family and friends is a really nice part of it as well. That's rarely talked about.
Yes. And we can relate that to crypto too, because right now we're looking into the future. Yes, we've made some gains. We're likely to make some more. And we're excited about those gains. But once we're on the other side in the bear market, right? In the next bear that we're inevitably going into, we get to, from that vantage point, look back at the bull market with fond memories. That's going to be great, man.
Yeah, crypto is kind of odd in its design because there's really no end destination. You can kind of just keep making milestone after milestone after milestone, but the journey is definitely its own reward, right? Sometimes even more than the destination. The cool thing about crypto is the end destination you set is just usually part of the journey because you can set a goal of a 1 billion market cap, but once you reach that, you then set your next goal, right? Like, okay, let's get this thing to 2 billion, 3 billion. Like, let's get the holder count up. Let's get the liquidity count up. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so many metrics that you can keep improving on even once you hit some of those milestones, right? I'd say business and life is somewhat similar to that. You'll set like a goal for a business, you'll set a milestone for your life, and then you hit it, and then you're like, okay, well, what's the next? Because once you hit it, it's like, okay, well, that's finished. Now I need to set the next journey and enjoy the process to get to that next milestone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Life is a journey. An enjoyable one. Well, not always enjoyable. And bear with me, I'm going to bring up a negative. There's a guy that he was buying some pTGC, and I want you guys' feedback on this because I know I would bet I wouldn't bet my entire bag.
User error.
What's that?
User error.
Yeah, it's always is. A smart contract, any smart contract is as dependable as the calculator on your phone. But when I can't figure it out, then I gotta reach out. So this guy claims he was charged 10% on a transaction. And I don't understand where the error is. Because it is a user error, it's computer, it's something. It's not the contract. We know that because if it were the contract, there would be other people with the same error and a lot of them. So how do you figure it out? I mean, I've got
a lot of that comes from the liquidity pools, right? Not the smart contracts. So you have to realize you're interacting with the DEX, and that DEX is what's giving you the price. And there's a lot of settings that you can play with that DEX, from multi-hops to multi-swaps to sending to different addresses to multiple liquidity pools that you can go into. You can go into one liquidity pool. If you don't have that stuff set up properly, the DEX will just do what you're telling it to do, you know, and you could possibly be going into multiple liquidity pools, and that doesn't always give you the best price. They like to say it gives you the best price, and it usually does, but that has nothing to do with the contract with pTGC. The other thing is if you haven't done the other way, right, like you're going into just one liquidity pool, and And let's say you're swapping ink for pTGC, and you're just doing straight that swap. Well, there's going to be slippage involved with that transaction if you're going just A to B, because there isn't as much liquidity with ink than there is with Pulse or PulseX, etc. So there's just a lot of variables to take into consideration when you're doing these kind of things. And price discrepancies usually are nothing to do with the pTGC smart contract. It has to do with the DEX, and then also you have to consider price fluctuation of the assets. Like you could sell pTGC and then some news on a World War III can come out 2 minutes later and all of Pulse Chain can reduce in price.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you got a worse price in quantity of tokens. That just means the price of all assets have decreased by, yesterday we saw it 10% due to news.
Right. And then rallied right back up, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't really looked at the charts in depth, but.
Yeah, they did move their way back up, right? That's one thing I noticed as well. A lot of people were comparing what happened this week to COVID. And this is not how I remember COVID at all. I remember COVID's dip being massive. And yeah, it started working its way back up, and it was the craziest opportunity to take advantage of that COVID dip. But I saw people even making posts today saying, like, take advantage of this World War III dip. Yep. And I'm like looking at the chart, and I'm like, well, it's literally the exact same price it was before for the most part.
Yeah, that was kind of like puzzling me. Like everybody's saying, oh, it's a tremendous opportunity. And I was like, well, we're only down like 5%, but yeah, it was still an opportunity, and it probably still is.
I think the market's just an opportunity in general right now, right? I don't think that had a specific huge impact on it. Where we are on pTGC is a massive discount. And taking advantage of dips really can change the amount of X's that you do in the future. For example, where we are right now is 3.5X away from our all-time high. And let's say, you're someone who put a little bit of value in at the top, and this dip came and you had
Yeah, now you're talking. Yeah, it's
all 350X, and you can shrink the numbers down to kind of make them a little bit easier, is so much more than 100X. A 35X is so much more than a 10X. The thing I like to look at is like, hey, people do want a DCA and they want to get some of their initial out. Well, if you take advantage of discounts and these low opportunities, when we get to these higher levels, you can actually shave off initials. You can actually DCA a portion of your portfolio out and still have a massive bag for, the long term of pTGC and UFO.
And I told you about this experiment that I did yesterday, a little experiment that had been kind of just burning on my mind, like stressing the urgency of getting into pTGC now versus waiting. And I dropped it in the chat yesterday. Did you happen to come across it? Did you see it?
I did see it. Yeah.
Okay. So I will try to articulate what I penciled out, and I built it into a spreadsheet, and I'll share it for you guys on YouTube. So if pTGC does like a 1.01x for the next 365 days, every day 1.01x, or the equivalent would be like a 1% move for 365 days. The price that would be a 37x in price. That's a nice gain. Now, if a user had 100 million tokens, like he bought 100 million tokens, and it doesn't even really matter the amount of tokens. Honestly, it matters how much you earn. So the first day on 100 million tokens, he would earn $17.30 in reflections. And the last day he would earn a little bit more, like $18.29. But on the last day, okay, 365 days from today, his first day, the value of his tokens would be worth $647. So it went from, it's a 37x, it went from $17.30 to $647. Now, why is that important? Because you're earning $17 for your first number of, several days. As price goes up, you're finally making $18 about 120 days into this experiment. But by the end of the experiment, by the end of the 37Xs, you're earning $647 a day, and then $641 the next day, $635 the next day. So your total value in the end is $6,419 if you did a 37X.
Yeah, I feel like we've already kind of experienced that situation in the last year, right? If you look at the rewards that we're receiving a year ago, or 10 months ago or whatever it is, near the lows, those quantity of tokens were so much larger, and we're up, I don't know how many X's off the top of my head, but let's say 20X. If we're already up 20X from those levels, so the example that you're giving, we've already done.
Yes.
Right. So anyone who was in the protocol at those levels have actually experienced that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
They've experienced the protocol, then receive rewards. The protocol go up like 60X. Those rewards also got revalued by 60X. And then they partially came back down. But the nice thing is when it comes back down, they're back in the same boat of rewarding the higher quantity of tokens, right? Mm-hmm. So then when prices go back up, everything that they're rewarding at these levels is technically a DCA in every single day into the greatest currency. Yes, they're in somewhat small amounts, depending on the size bag you have, but you are DCAing every single day into a system that has a deflationary supply, very large liquidity, utility, etc. And then when the markets start to move, your position is that much greater. And if you didn't sell your APY at the lows, and let's say you just held on to it for the highs, well, maybe that's where you take some of your profits from, because you didn't relinquish any of your initial and any of your APY at low levels. And you kind of can wait for that APY to revalue itself, making the APY value that much greater. You have to have a little bit of delayed gratification to play that game. But if you played that game the last run, right, with pTGC, if you just let your rewards accumulate low, and then as it hits some numbers that you were happy with, using that APY as your little bit of profit taking or DCAing, I think is a really good strategy for this protocol, because we know that there's always going to be lows and highs with the market. This is the only guarantee that the market's ever given. It's an inhale and exhale process. Everything exhales, it goes lower, and then money starts flowing back into risk on assets, and then the value goes up. So if you can utilize the low periods to just generate more tokens, and then utilize the higher periods to better your life, better your family's life, etc. if you need to, right? Like, I don't know everyone's personal situation where they need some of the value from crypto, they're looking to pay themselves back, but there is a plan that you can actually set up for yourself to get maximum reward out of your portfolio.
Yeah. Yes. And so, like on day one of this experiment, you're earning 56,565 tokens. After a 37x, you're earning 1,598 tokens. Just because as the price goes up, the contract's not buying as many tokens because it can't, just because of the difference in price.
You want to know one thing I find incorrect about the experiment, though?
Tell me.
Is I don't see a situation where price increases and volume doesn't increase in a somewhat even or more manner. Every data point that we've gathered from the last 2 years, and I know you even have slides showing this, is every time Pulse Chain's value and pTGC's value increases, our volume has actually been increasing not only evenly, but multiplied. We've actually found that when price went up, 5x against Pulse Chain, our volume increased like 10x, right? And I don't know if that's always going to be the case, but I am interested to see, because even with the movement ups of Pulse Chain, we have seen still very, very little adoption to Pulse Chain, right? Like the movement ups of Pulse Chain have been mostly due to just the market moving up, right? Having some bondage with ETH, just having some people move value onto risk on assets. But it hasn't been from real adoption and mega volume to the chain. I do believe when adoption starts coming to the chain and when volume starts coming to the chain, these numbers aren't even just going to be even multipliers. So for an example, pTGC goes up 10x, volume goes up 10x. I actually don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be pTGC moves up 10x, volume moves up 20x, right? Because mechanically, we can depend on the machine to create volume, but when markets move up, human interaction moves up. And that's not a linear movement like it is with the mechanical side. It's actually a multiplied movement, because when bull markets come, it maximizes the volume and volatility to a chain. And this is one of the key ingredients that pTGC thrives off of that it has yet gotten to see in its existence.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it in existence. Let me tell you what.
We've had little snippets of it on chain with certain LPs. Snippets. But nothing like, a successful Pulse Chain with Brain.
Like when Ink ran up last summer, I think it was.
I would say we got a snippet of it with the Atropic ecosystem. With a PDI run up, the only thing that really brought volume to the chain. But it was just a primer, a very small primer of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep in mind too, that was just one asset. I take that back, because with pTGC, we have pTGC or PDI, Teddy, and Atropa, and those are all connected. But when Richard's tickers, which is the majority of the liquidity for pTGC and UFO, start to do the moves like what PDI has done in the past, and there's the volatility and volume in those assets, I think it's going to be multiplied, right? And I think you kind of were tapping in that we've seen little glimpses of this. We've seen what happens when assets we're connected to are successful. Just sadly, right now, even the best pairs that we've had in the past have currently drawn down quite a lot, right?
I think the important thing though, Zen, is that we do have, it's not just a theoretical that you're putting out, right? We've actually, thankfully, we've actually had some things come onto Pulse Chain, some narratives that were powerful narratives that did do some big X's and some big volume for a certain amount of time, and it did allow us to see the system the potential for what the system can do on a massive blockchain. You know, when there's an actual adoption, and it wouldn't just come obviously from one protocol. The thing about pTGC is we have the ability to as a DAO invest in anything that's massive that comes onto this blockchain, right?
Yep.
So the fact that we had kind of a small test case in that PDI ecosystem, it allowed us to see and bring in some data and some key performance indicators on what it looks like to just have one asset do that, which was obviously, it made us an absolute killing, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, kind of on your going back to Banana's thing that he set up, I think even, and you would have to kind of create the calculator for this, I think it's almost even more maximized or max amplified than what you're describing. Because what you're describing is just price increases over a year, but you're not including volume increases as well. And you have to realize if volume's increasing, yes, getting in later is still fine because the machine's kind of increasing evenly. But that just means if you get in early and you take advantage of the discounts, you have the opportunity to get that much more of the supply for that much more less value, right?
%100%.
That's a huge part of it, in my opinion. It's very similar to owning a percentage of a business, right? Because this is a value generating machine. It's not a company. It's a decentralized unit that generates value, and your percentage of the supply is your percentage of the value generation, because that's your percentage of the price. Even if some of it's going to buy and burns, but you own those tokens. So you get to actually reap the rewards of price appreciation. You also get to reap the rewards of APY, etc. You also get to tap into the liquidity web if you do decide to exit at some point. That's your value. But very, very easily with Pulse Chain's price increasing, Banana's example, the 32x, well, you know, a sharp position today, I think is it $100,000 and the Dolphin 10,000? Or it's like 80,000 and 8,000. So a Dolphin is 8,000 and a Shark is 80,000. But 32 times 8,000, you know, this is the Dolphin position, that's $256,000 for a Dolphin position after this example takes place to get that same size position. If you wanted a Shark, you know, which possibly a big player wants, that's going to take you $2,560,000 to acquire. You have to bring in some serious capital to get those positions once the revaluation of pTGC and Pulse Chain takes place. And the last time Pulse Chain moved up, we did a 60x. So I don't see a 32x being out of the cards, you know, because Pulse Chain didn't even go up to SAC price in the last move up. And there's only so much supply left. I think only 3% of the supply is on the market. And that was one of the things back in the day, a lot of Bitcoin people used to like run by people like, hey, there's only so much supply and there's this much people in the world who are going to want to hold this store of value. Because right now, there's a huge issue with storing value. In every country, there's a problem with storing value because the fiat is constantly working against you. So you need to store your value in systems that are appreciating faster than the inflation of your own country. Every country is different, but we all are in the same problem. It's pretty much one of the biggest sectors in finance that has the most utility, is just protecting the value you've worked for and earned. There's only 3% of the supply left for everyone, right?
Which most people don't really understand.
I think over time, a lot of people started to understand it with Bitcoin because of the supply being so low. And you're like, hey, just look at the supply and then look at the quantity of people that exist in this world. And that's what's awesome about crypto is it's not designated to just one city or state. Anyone in the entire world. We realized this with our t-shirt shipping when we did the t-shirt giveaway. I think the 200 t-shirts went to like 50 different countries or something like that. So the pTGC community is all over the world. So for the entire world, there's only 3% of the supply left. And Pulsion is currently giving a massive discount on that 3%. But Pulsion leaves the station if Richard made that tweet about 2 months. I don't know what that about marketing and free gifts, etc. But let's say within 2 months, all of Pulsion starts to revalue. Not just Richard's figures, but everything. Those prices can disappear very, very quickly. Even with a whale coming into pTGC, we've even seen whales come into pTGC and say, hey, I want my position. Right now is the discount. Well, that can start the process of just taking away the discount prices.
You know what's funny about the whales when they come in? We've seen some come in, trying to slip $1 million in this thing. They lock, which I think is very interesting.
I don't find that too interesting because I think whales are obviously somewhat wealthy. If they're coming in with $1 million, they're wealthy. And they understand what this system was made for, and they understand, having delayed gratification. They understand having your value work for you, and you don't need to move in and out of assets constantly every day. You just need to find the right assets and get into them and be in them long term. Because it's not about finding the right asset and getting out early, a quick flip. It's about finding the right asset and staying in it long term. That's how real wealth is made. And these people, if they're wealthy, they already know this. So
yeah, it's time in the market. It's not timing the market. Right? The most wealthy people in crypto are the people who just held their Bitcoin and Ethereum and didn't do shit. They just held it. They just went off, they just bought it, had a DCA strategy, and just went off into the sunset. They all became millionaires, every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you can actually wait out, and do your due diligence, right? 99% of products are not the needle in the haystack. So they do their due diligence, they find the right product, they put value in it, and they wait it out long term. And then when they do want to better their life with a portion of that portfolio, it's not a 2x where they have to sell half of the portfolio to just get back their initial or go invest in something else. It's up 100x. So they're literally having to take off a 1% little flip. They might even already receive that in APY, so they're not even having to tap their initial. They have to take off a little tiny amount, and they can make their next move, find the next product, or, just better their in real life situation as well.
I should have caveated it with, locked out 10 years. Those are long locks, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they locked out the max.
Yeah, I think look at where Bitcoin is right now, and Bitcoin's been out for longer than 10 years. And a lot of the features that give Bitcoin value is its scarcity, the fact that it has liquidity behind it, the utility behind it. And the utility is kind of a question mark because some people are like, well, that utility doesn't need to be used. But I kind of look at it as like, it's got the most important utility that exists, storing value. Right? This is what everyone on planet Earth wants to do. A lot can't, right? Because a lot of people don't have extra value right now due to the world being extremely tough. But the utility of storing value is very, very important. It's one of the biggest market sectors that exists. That's why Bitcoin had success in store of value, did not have much success in transactional currency. So it's interesting to see what price can do when a system can last multi-cycle, right? Most tokens do not last multi-cycle. So that's number one problem. You don't even get to see them develop over time. But PTGC's code has been designed to amplify all the features that have given things value in this world, right? Scarcity, utility. We do have risk, right? Code always has risk. Brand new ideas always have risk. Being built on a blockchain with very little adoption, with where we are right now, is a huge risk. But the reward is absolutely massive, right? Like all the growth that Bitcoin has gotten as far as X's has been solely from itself. PTGC's growth can be multiplied by the growth that the blockchain is built on, and also the market going up as well. And that really gives a unique situation of changing people's lives now, right? In Bitcoin, if you want to change your life with Bitcoin, you aren't really doing it. What you're using it for is a store of value because you've kind of already made it in life, or you have extra funds and you want it protected against the inflation of whatever country you're in, but you need to keep DCAing. Imagine if you were constantly DCAing into a product that had the ability to do 10, 20, 50, 100, 1000x in the next few years. You actually don't need to be that wealthy in real life to become very wealthy in real life. Obviously, a ton of risk involved, right? We're on a blockchain with very little adoption. Bitcoin has literally governments and countries buying at this point, and the biggest companies in the world. But the fact that no one knows about it and there is some risk there is where all the reward is benefited or built into it.
Yeah, I was talking to you the other day about, comparing PTGC to Bitcoin. I did that post, you kind of piggybacked off of it about the math money post, right?
I loved it because that's one of the things that I was told when I first got into Bitcoin. It was just, hey, just do the math. It's pretty simple. Look at how many Bitcoin will ever exist, right? There is a supply that's, out there and they can't just print it infinitely. And look at how many people there are in the world. If this product gets adoption, and it is, the math does not math with Bitcoin being cheap. It forces the price per Bitcoin up and up and up and up. And that's in an inflationary product. That's with more supply coming out with every single transaction. That's with the supply that's coming out being sold onto the market without any capital being invested into the product to even access that supply. So some of the key features that have actually suppressed the Bitcoin price have been eliminated with the design of PTGC. We obviously have a different risk. The different risk is being built on a blockchain that yet to have adoption. But this was the same risk Bitcoin had back in the day. At some point, Bitcoin could have just not gotten the adoption that it deserved and could have technically not really died off, but not got the price appreciation that people obviously are in Bitcoin for today. But why did it get the adoption? It's because they worked hard. They got it in front of people's face. They taught people about decentralized finance, the fact that you can transact peer-to-peer without having to pretty much ask your government for permission.
Yeah, imagine if Bitcoin was hyper deflationary and the volume going through it, a small portion of it just paid everyone to hold it and earned the tokens out of existence.
Yeah, the thing is what I've kind of found.
The price, oh my God.
There would have been probably less opportunities to get big amounts in the first half a decade, right? Because the inflation was higher back then. And I believe this is somewhat of why Hex is where it is right now, is when you have high inflation, you have a portion of the supply coming out and getting sold onto the market, causing the price to remain low.
he's cut that. So soon he pretty much made it to where now if demand just stays relative and supply is level, it forces the price upwards. So it's given people, obviously 4 years ago, the price was super, super high. You bought 99% higher. But if you just believe in the product, you actually have an opportunity today to get 100 times the amount of tokens that you had for the same amount of value. This is what we were talking about earlier, the power of DCA. The power of actually having conviction in something is very, very important. Not just buying something from FOMO, but actually believing in the product long term. If you believe in Hex, the opportunity is in front of you right now. pTGC's design, I do not think is going to give people that opportunity 4 years from now, because there is no inflation. So possibly the best opportunity to get in
right now
could be right now.
I also think that you have to factor in that people are starting to realize what this suite of smart contracts actually is on Pulse Chain specifically. And at any type of a substantial drawdown, they're going to take massive positions of the thing. And I already know that there's a ton of people. I have peers on Pulse Chain that, you know, if it hits certain targets, millions of dollars is coming in, right? So I'll tell you right now, even though I've been here from the beginning, if there's any kind of a drawdown, there's not enough tokens to go around that. I'm just kind of backstopping what you're saying. There's just not enough tokens to go around, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people that would be willing to take massive positions at certain levels. So you'd have to be sitting right there to get that dip, right? I'm talking about
I 100% agree. I think the DAO has numbers that they possibly are looking for. I think individuals have numbers that they're looking for and ratios against Pulse. Even myself, I have numbers that if it gets down to, because let's say a large holder one day wakes up and says, I'm just going to capitulate, like, I'm going to take advantage of it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people are in that same boat. The problem is the holders that hold large amounts are some of the most diamond-handed people in all of crypto. They've held through 200x moves up, and they've held through 95% moves down or 90% moves down. So if you study how they've actually acted for the last year, 2 years, it just doesn't seem like they're doing it, right? And that's not to say that they won't, right? One day someone might wake up and take a huge amount of profits. But it's just, I think if you study pTGC, the reason they hold a large amount is because they are a diamond standard community member, and it seems like they're pretty good at holding.
Can you imagine having a shark position or above and selling just to watch the Pulse Chain, the train just leave the station, and you literally just you're literally just the guy that just sold your Bitcoin for your 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas.
Yeah, you know, the thing is back then there wasn't a lot of things to learn off of, right? There wasn't a lot of data that you could look back and say, maybe some stocks, right? But nowadays we have so much information to look at and say, wow, I don't need to make the same mistakes that other people have made, because I can actually learn from their mistakes. Where these people in Bitcoin, it was their first rodeo in this industry, right? They had to learn everything from technically failures, right? So we can actually look at these people and say, okay, who made the most money? The people who just bought and forgot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be that guy that flipped his pTGC, $65,000 of pTGC. You remember this probably from a few weeks ago, Mando, into a rug pull. He got rugged. I mean, he lost everything.
Oh man, I've seen it not just with a rug pull. I've seen it just chasing the yield game too. You know, it's so sad because if you're that guy, once that happens to you, you're just like, I just screwed myself.
You know, one thing about that though that I find interesting is you can see this technically also happening with hex and pulse chain at times too. Is people kind of sometimes get impatient with really, really good products, and they'll go and start chasing things, right? And they're affecting their own portfolio if they get into the wrong thing and not doing their due diligence. Like, let's say they take a quarter of their portfolio out. And let's say it's not just one person, let's say it's a group of people, because this is a great example for hex, right? Like, a very large amount of hex and pulse chain people have taken portions of their pulse chain and hex and gambled it into products that have failed, or just taken their money, or rug pulled, or so on and so forth. Well, when this happens, that person who's taking their money most of the time is never staying on chain. So they're actually then not only taking the money out of their wallets, but then they're also swapping that pulse to ETH and then bridging out and then exiting crypto in general, because they were never like here for the long term anyways. So you're affecting your own portfolio because you just lost your tokens, but you're affecting the overall price of the entire system, the token that you're in as well, and the blockchain that you're built on. So you're getting hit by like 3 different revenues, and you start to ask yourself like, okay, well, why is price not moving up? We feel like we're onboarding people to pulse chain constantly, and it's like, well, it's because this bucket has so many holes in it. Even though we have a hose in at the top and we're trying to fill it up, if people just keep handing their pulse chain over to people who technically are just taking that money and leaving, or spending money on sacrifices that, you know, none of the money is ultimately used for good of pulse chain. Like, I'm going to give not a name, but just in the last few months, I saw a sacrifice that earned roughly $500,000, and the product is just dead with no liquidity. $500,000 would do so much for pulse chain right now.
Yeah, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That specific one with that specific person. I think that was like, wow.
That's just one example, right? And I was talking about this yesterday. Is a lot of times people, when you build a kingdom, right? I consider Hex a kingdom with so much treasure, so much value in it. I consider pTGC the same thing. And everyone has their guard up at times, looking outside the walls, saying, who is trying to get at our value? Who is trying to get at our value? And a lot of people will come up to those walls and try to get at that value. And they're going to act like, hey, I want to come in the walls. I'm going to help bring value in. A lot of the time, they want in the walls to get your value out, not to bring value in. So you need to be very, very cautious about who you bring into those walls. But the sad thing about these kingdoms a lot of time is most of the value isn't getting taken out by the people outside the walls. It's getting taken out from the people inside the walls. And if you keep letting value constantly get pulled out and out and out, it's going to drain the net worth of that entire kingdom until you put a stop to it. And then everyone who is working hard and helping bring value in, it can actually start to increase, right? But you're never going to increase if you onboard, and you're just letting value get constantly taken out. You know what I mean? And Richard's been tweeting about this. Richard said, multiple times, if you keep just giving up the custody of your assets when you go into tokens or giving sacrifices or going into rug pulls, you're giving up your tokens to the people who are running these things. And they're creating these things to literally get the tokens out of your wallet into their wallet. So then they can just leave. This isn't helping you financially, and it's not helping the chain.
Zen, it's one of the things I love about the Grace, about being a community member here. because the participation means that you're actually helping Pulse Chain, because this protocol has been a net buyer. It's been one of the largest net buyers of Richard Hart's tickers on the entire blockchain. And when we take that capital and we buy the tickers and pair with them, essentially those tokens are off the market. Unless you dive in to those tickers, they're off the market. You got to take your token. You have to be willing to take your pTGC and relinquish your pTGC to get to those tokens, right? So the beautiful thing is that synergy between the Pulse Chain ecosystem and the Grays ecosystem, now how they work to help one another. Even how UFO is not built as a side project, like its own DEX on Pulse Chain. It's built on top of Pulse X, and it benefits Pulse X, right? The benevolence and the reciprocity of how this ecosystem synergizes with the Pulse Chain ecosystem instead of vampires off of it. I love that about the system, because you're tapping into something. Most people that see the value with pTGC, all they see is, how can I extract? How can I copy? How can I mimic? How can I get those guys to buy my thing? And they come over here and they act like they're benevolent. And trust me, guys, we know every trick in the book. We know every strategy. Every psychological potential thing you could try to do. We see through all of that stuff, And so the beauty is that what the Grays ecosystem represents is a synergy and a reciprocity with Richard. And I love the fact that we've been actually rewarded for doing what most people think is the opposite. They think that the quick route is the faster route to gains. In reality,
TGB
it's
of
the
the plane.
opposite with the Grays. The interesting thing too is that we actually haven't even been rewarded for what we've done on the chain yet, in the sense of the chain rewarding us, right? But when that happens, that's gonna be the thing, man. When that happens, and you talk about it all the time, Zen, when Pulse Chain makes a run, people that are locked into these tokens now, it's gonna be very interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, because Pulse Chain hasn't done anything for 2 years, and the Grays have been around for 3/4 of that. And yet the Gray,
Ferry, what is it right now, Ferry, to get just back up to what is it to just get back up to previous all-time high? What is it, 3 zeros and a 3, something like that?
yeah, let me have a look. I can tell you in percent. It's going to be 124%.
Oh, it's got to be way more than that, dude.
Oh, I'm looking at it in WPLS. Hold up. All right. 300%. 2 zeros, 1250.
Pulse chain to go from where it is currently to its all-time high of.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, that was
yeah,
that was a long time ago. That was a year ago, wasn't it?
So, but we're looking at basically almost a 9x, an 8 to 9x for Pulse Chain just to go to its opening all-time high.
Yeah, and when Pulse Chain did a 4x, pTGC did 42. So that could put us at 80 to 100x.
Well, right, but let's just give us the X of going to the previous all-time high and just do the 9X, I think we're at what, like an 80, what are we at, an 80 something $1 million market cap right now?
Yes.
Is it an 86 $million market cap?
Yep.
Yeah,
88.
it's almost exactly 10x away because we're at 4 zeros and a 3, and I think all-time high is 3 zeros and a 3. So
Yeah, so that's just under an $800 million market cap. So you're teetering on almost $1 billion market cap with just Pulse Chain doing its previous all-time high.
And that's going to put us.
This thing could literally go. The Grays is set up to literally go into the billions and billions of market cap with
Yeah.
a successful Pulse Chain with very little effort. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. We just haven't been there yet. Hey, but there was a time when we were like, hey, we could hit parity with PLS, and we're in that same kind of, we believe it can happen, but we hadn't been there yet, but we did it on August 26th last year.
Currently 32x away from a penny. We were a 6x away from a penny at the previous all-time high.
Uh-huh.
We're 32x away at a penny. Every 100 million pTGC is worth a cold $1 million. Just for some standard math.
Yep.
Every 100 million pTGC is worth $1 million.
At 1 penny.
At a 32x from now, we were a 6x away from that at the previous all-time high.
So that's,
I think right now you could get that at what, like for like 30,000 or something?
yeah, something like that. So 100 million pTGC at 1 penny is worth $1 million. All right, this is really simple, but it's worth thinking about. What's it worth at 2 pennies? It's $2 million. At 3 pennies, $3 million, and so on. That hit me the other day. I was like, whoa, man, that adds up quick. It multiplies quick. Because, if we can go to 1 penny, you know how easy it will be to go to 2 pennies? And the lesson in there is hodl. I just have to, like, speaking about myself, I just have to be the big boy and hodl my bags. Because that would be a big bummer to cheat your bag at 1 penny and think I made $1 million. I'm finally a millionaire. And then it goes to 2 and 3 and 4 pennies. Wow. And I'm going to tell you, man, like when I was a child, when I was a boy, my parents would always talk about, if I could just, everybody talk about if I could just be a millionaire. Well, today in 2025, $1 million doesn't go as far as my parents, as it would have gone in my parents' day. So sure, $1 million is a nice benchmark, and I'd like to have one, but we probably need, it depends on your lifestyle, but we probably need more.
Yeah, $1 million and 80,000 a year, it'll last you about 12, 13 years.
There you go.
If you're wanting to make 80,000 a year.
Yep. There you go. And then you end up, being a greeter at Walmart. Who wants to do that?
What were you going to say, Tim?
I was going to say banana. Well, in the last 6 years, pretty much $1 million is worth half as much as it was 6 years prior. Let alone when your parents were thinking about it, it's probably 10x of a difference of a number, not even half.
True.
And that's kind of why products like pTGC, I think, need to exist, because it does give us the opportunity to, I don't want to use the word fight, but hedge ourselves against a really bad situation that we're in. I don't think that situation is necessarily the individual's fault, but the individuals do have tools in front of them if they're willing to look and dig to find ways to not be as much directly affected by what's going on with the general situation of fiat. obviously we're still affected because everything is transactional via fiat. But if you can store a little bit of value in things like price appreciating assets that are scarce, we have the opportunity, as they keep inflating currency, which I assume they're just going to keep going and going and going, it actually makes us more value. Because I love using the apples to oranges analogies. If you have 100 apples and 100 oranges and they're ratioed the same, right? And then they print 100 more apples, so now it's 200 apples to 100 oranges, pTGC being the oranges, fiat being the apples. Well, now you just increase the price of all the oranges times 2. Not because anyone bought them, not because they got scarce, but just because they increased the transactional currency for them now that there's 200 more apples compared to the oranges. And then you add in deflationary. Imagine half the oranges got deleted, they're deflationary. Well, now you 4x'd the value of the oranges, right? This is a very basic example of what we're working with here. So now we've actually hedged ourselves in a positive direction of fiat just getting printed infinity, right? If you aren't in the asset that is getting traded for the fiat, you're just in fiat or you're working for a paycheck every 2 weeks, they're constantly making it more and more difficult to buy the oranges, right? You now have to work twice as many hours to get the same result if you're not getting a raise in an equal manner to the inflation, which in the United States right now, you're not. The average raise is like 3% a year and the inflation is 10% a year. Do the math. You technically have to work more and more every single year to make the same amount of value. But if you're in the actual asset that the value is increasing, you don't actually need to work more. It's automatically increasing the asset.
That's one of the things I enjoy about, when I tell my friends about pTGC, that the tokens are deflationary, and they just you can just kind of see the inquisitiveness in their head. Like, it doesn't make sense that an asset would be, well, like, deflating because they know that the dollar is inflating. It's just like, and that's just totally opposite, but it's what we want. It's what they
want storing value, right? For transactional currency, it's actually not the best situation because for a transactional currency, you technically want like the goods to remain the same price, and there's constantly more humans coming onto the earth, making it to where you technically can have more dollars, and it would be the same value because it has to be shared amongst more people. The demand is increasing with more human births. But for storing value for price appreciation, it's the opposite of what you want. So you have to know what your product is and actually know why does this product need to exist. If it's a transactional currency, inflation isn't that big a deal as long as it's controlled and done in a manner that doesn't completely dilute the value of the dollar. But if you're looking to store value and you want your value to work for you or you want it to appreciate over time, yeah, deflation is like a no-brainer. It's literally tapping into the basic idea of supply and demand. If you reduce supply, that pushes price up. If you control demand, keep it even or increase it, it pushes the price up that much more. And this is economics 101. It's been studied for hundreds of years. I've never heard anyone argue against that idea. You can look at it with any product that exists, any business that exists. Everyone runs it. This is how it works. It just makes sense that we would operate these blockchain assets in the same manner where we can control these things.
Yeah, I remember back in 2003, 2004, looking at gold, and it was like $200 something an ounce back then. And I got involved in that industry about 2010. And seeing the price of gold, what it is right now, with my specific history, some of you know my history with that specific industry. it's just absolutely astronomical seeing the price of gold. Silver is massively undervalued as well, but seeing a $3,446 gold and knowing that it's still massively undervalued compared to M3 and, compared to the amount of money that's out there, it's just astronomical. What it means is that, people who are holding the dollar, unfortunately, they're getting absolutely slaughtered. And I think this really is another big point that we don't really talk about a lot, is that, the boomers and older, they don't have a lot of tech savvy knowledge. They don't have a lot of investment knowledge. They don't know how to really protect themselves for, the amount of hard work that they put in to build a family and to work really hard for their kids. Just to watch, if they got $500,000 saved up, that's a lot of money for a lot of people from that generation, from my parents' generation. And then you can literally watch that $500,000 nest egg just get decimated against gold, against silver, against food and eggs and everything you need just to survive. And then they wonder, why am I feeling so just demolished financially? I've done everything right? And I think that things like crypto, obviously, and a few other things, they really are the things that should be talked about amongst our families to protect our families against this stuff. Because it's so in your face. If you just bare bones explain it to people, hey guys, look at the amount of money you have in your bank account in the dollar, and look at the amount of purchasing power against real goods and services that you have lost in just the last 5 to 10 years, right? If you had just taken the purchasing power, your economic energy out of that, put it into this that can at least hedge against that, you'd have been 10 times better off, right? And obviously there's products to do that. Obviously crypto is one of them. Bitcoin's obviously one of them. Precious metals is one of them, and there's other financial products that help you do that. But if we're not having that conversation with people that we love the most, that really aren't geared toward that, they've never learned that, they're just getting slaughtered, guys. And this is what crypto allows us to do. It allows us to hedge against that stuff. Obviously, for example, pTGC. You took a certain amount of money, put it on Pulse Chain, right? It was like a 1-to-1 swap. Hey, I got $10,000 US I just made. I'm going to swap it for Pulse Chain. Okay, great. And then I'm going to swap this Pulse Chain for pTGC, and pTGC does a 300x, 350x, whatever it is. Well, you just completely changed your life on that, right? Because if you just took $10,000 and you did a 300x, I mean, you can do the math. That's $3 million. And people work their whole damn life to make that much money, and not even that. So I just think that we need to really start trying to help people grasp that basic fundamental of inflation, supply, demand, how to hedge your money. People need to stop talking in terms of saving money, and they need to start talking in terms of hedging money at the bare minimum, hedging money. Us in crypto, we're not just hedging, we're obviously doing much more than that. But a product like pTGC, in my opinion, while it's speculative, it has everything built into it mechanically that you would look for in something that wouldn't just hedge against inflation, but would massively outperform inflation. And that's generally what people are trying to do in the market, in the legacy markets, is, if you're in something that's just hedging If your client is just earning above the inflation rate, you're basically just breaking even, right? Well, that's not actually making returns for your customers. You have to be outperforming the inflation rate to actually be earning a yield. So I think this is a special opportunity, not just Pulse Chain. I'm just talking about crypto in general and what it offers people to protect themselves from that situation.
Yeah, I would like to kind of tell my story of like how I got into crypto and why. I've told this story plenty of times, but I feel like it's just right on this subject. I've had a decently successful business outside of crypto for 10 years now, 12 years now. And for the first 6 years, 5 years, I invested all the money I was making, the extra money, back into the business, which was a very profitable way to spend the money because I believed in the business and the business was making me money. I was growing the business, getting equipment to make it more profitable. I got the business to a level to where I was happy with it, and it's still at that level. I'm still happy with it. But then I said, okay, I'm going to start saving and investing this money in some more traditional finance sectors. But then very quickly, I realized that every single thing I was looking at in the more traditional sector was really not the best place to save money because inflation was actually going up faster than the reward of these assets at that time. And I said, wow, this is kind of set up very poorly. It's doing two things. It's incentivizing people to spend their money so they don't have any savings. So you constantly are working for that check and it's constantly getting decreased by inflation. So you actually never have any value, or it's incentivizing you to just put it back in the business. And I was at a point where I said, hey, I wasn't wanting to put all this back into the business. I wanted some of this value to work in assets that were working for me that could at least pay me out more than the inflation that was happening. And then that's how I started looking into Bitcoin as an asset to store that value. So it wasn't constantly getting decreased by the inflation that was getting. If inflation's at 10% and the asset that you're storing value in is at 10%, you're making nothing. You're just hedging yourself against inflation, which is better than most people because most people save their value in like 2% growth assets. So you're technically losing 8% every year. But my point is it's designed to just keep you spending your money or store it with them so they can make money on your money. Crypto does give this very, very unique situation where we can store the value in ourselves. We can actually make great price appreciation, APY, and the value is going towards us, not towards other people. It's amazing, right? And when you educate people on this, I think modern, like younger people understand a little bit better because like the generation above, let's say Mando's parents, it was actually okay to save money and store value because you were able to make enough money to store value every single month, and the inflation wasn't insane at that point. But if you look at the situation they're in now, they possibly worked their whole entire life to save up $1 million, and they're decreasing the value of that $1 million rapidly right now. Like I just was telling Banana, pretty much decreased it 50% in the last 5 years. So they've lost the economic buying power of what they spent their whole life savings in the last 5 years. Crypto is super, super unique because in that lifespan of, maybe some of our parents, they spent their whole life to get that $1 million. So it makes it very, very difficult to make that $1 million because everyone has an overhead. So the longer it takes you to make the dollar amount that you need in your savings to be somewhat financially free, the longer it's going to take. But if you can do that faster, that means you're going way above your overhead number every single month. It's going to make it that much easier for you, if you know what I mean. And that's what crypto really does, is it's such a volatile place, and it actually gives us the ability to get the financial freedom numbers in a very, very short amount of time. And if you can do it in a short amount of time, let's say your monthly overhead number is $100,000. That's what you need to pay all your bills. Well, if you're making $110,000 a year, well, then you're saving $10,000 a year, and it's going to take you very, very long to get to that $1 million. But in crypto, since it is so volatile, since there is so much price appreciation, if you can turn, you know, let's say you're working and you can turn that $10,000 into $100,000 in just 1 year, well, now to get to that $1 million, it's only going to take you 10 years instead of 100. And then that actually gets you to a point where you can have some of your life to enjoy it with your family and friends. And I think that's why a lot of people are here in crypto, because they do realize that they want to have a good portion of their life to hang with their kids, to hang with their wife, to hang with their friends, and actually enjoy it and not actually be a slave to the system. Because it is set up to keep you in a spot, and they want to educate you to make you think that you do remain in this spot for your whole entire life. No one likes to tell you that it's very, very easy with some hard work. Literally like 5 years of hard work can break you out of that system for the rest of your life. They don't want you to know that. And in this world, hard work is actually rewarded very, very well. Actually caring to be here on these spaces, or any industry, right? This is just one industry of plenty that you could become financially free with. You just have to kind of buckle down and really learn something for a few years, and it starts to reward you. It's just, they don't really tell you that, and they make it sound impossible because they don't want you to break out of the system. They want you working until you're 60.
It's so true. Check this out, Zen. This will be very interesting for everybody. Talking about inflation and kind of where we've come since our parents, you know. Back when Kennedy was the president, in '65, you could purchase a brand new Ford Mustang for $2,320. It would cost you in silver, would cost you approximately 1,790 ounces of silver, which was worth $2,320 to buy that new Mustang in 1965. Today, a brand new Mustang costs, at the low end, around $30,000 to $35,000 US. And that same 1,798 ounces of silver, which would have purchased you that Mustang in 1965, is now currently worth almost $70,000. So that 1,798 ounces of silver today would purchase you 2 Mustangs instead of just one. With an inflation rate, you know, obviously the inflation rate at the bare minimum went from $2,350, which means that it cost you 14 times more money in US dollar terms to buy the same damn car. And if you would have kept that value in silver, just silver, you could purchase 2 of them today. So that's how people are just getting absolutely obliterated by holding fiat currencies that are just printing out of nowhere. And what Zen, you're saying is that, you know, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, basically, is what you're saying. and most people don't realize that.
I don't think the window is going to be here long either, because they are starting to realize that people are breaking out of the system that they've set with these tools, and they don't want that. They want control of that. So this possibly could be some of the last times in blockchain. This could be one of the last bull runs where you can actually change your life in that magnitude in that short a time, right? Because I do think they're going to get their thumb over it here soon. And I think the window of opportunity is shrinking. Because if you break out of the system, they have now one less worker, right? This is like the whole idea of like, as inflation keeps going up, you now, instead of needing just one person in the household to pay the bills, you now need 2 people in the household to pay the bills. Well, now they're making money off of 2 people instead of 1 person. They've now doubled their income. So it all goes back to like those same ideas. It's all just a business, and how many workers can they get and how much money can they make off of these workers. The whole world is technically workers working for them. The longer they can keep you working, the better. So when you start realizing all that stuff, you realize it's just all hedged against you. And as soon as you can get out of this system, the better. And there are tools to get out of this. I think crypto is one of them. I think pTGC and UFO are good tools on that tool to do it with like Paul Shane and Richard's product. I think Richard obviously understands all this stuff very, very well. But sooner or later, they're going to put their thumb on the things that are breaking people out of their system, right?
Or we go into a new paradigm. Which will be very interesting.
I like the sound of that.
You know, it's like how long? Nothing lasts forever. No paradigm lasts forever. No system lasts forever. With the information age and the amount of information and knowledge and wisdom that people can learn at a lightning pace now compared to even just 100 years ago, whether in religion or whether in monetary policy or whatever the heck it is, you're going to have a really hard time keeping people in a 1,000-year-old elitist paradigm.
Ayakax asks a question. Let's say pTGC hits a higher floor of like a penny or more. Would the burns by the market maker burn more or less? I would say it all depends on, I mean, $1,000 input, $1,000 transaction today versus $1,000 when it's a penny is going to be the same amount. You know, $50 out of that 1,000 is going to stay in this system or be paid to holders. So the burn would be the same. Does that sound right?
In token price, as the price of pTGC goes up in USD value,
mm-hmm.
the dollar amount, it will burn less tokens because the token value is more. It's much, much more. So it takes more USD value. And this goes along with exactly what we're talking about. If something is outpacing the value of the dollar and it's going up against the value of the dollar, and you're injecting money to try to buy it up off the market, it's going to take more of the US dollar to do the same amount of tokens removed from circulation. But what does that mean? That means that the people who hold the tokens are getting rich. They're becoming wealthy against the dollar, right? So yeah, as the price of pTGC goes up, if it goes to a penny, if it goes to 10 cents, whatever, it will take more economic energy to remove the same amount of tokens off the market. And this is what we've been seeing over the trend. It continues to be so even now. It continues to take, every cycle up and down, we landed a new floor because we've burned more tokens, we've added more people to the network, we've added more holders, we've removed more from supply, from stakers. So every time we have a floor, it's costing more dollars to burn the same amount of tokens.
Yes.
I think also it's worth bringing up that when pTGC, let's say, goes to that penny, the liquidity web will be bigger, which then makes it to where we're going to have an increased volume, which does make it to where we're buying and burning more value. And if that volume is higher than the ratio of volume to price today, we're going to be burning a higher quantity of tokens and a higher value price as well, right? So everything is kind of ratio based. We have a price to volume ratio going on right now. And when pTGC goes to a penny, there is going to be a new ratio up there. If the volume has, let's say that's a 30x, I don't know the exact number, But if the volume increases more than a 30x, we're going to be buying and burning way more dollar value and more quantity of tokens. But in that same scenario, if volume doesn't go up that 30x, let's say it goes up 15x, yes, we're going to still be burning way more dollar value, but we'll be buying and burning half the amount of quantity of tokens. So we can kind of study in the past if that moved up evenly or if one was amplified over the other. I believe in the past, we actually had a greater, when pTGC moved up X's, the volume actually increased greater, which made it to where it was a higher quantity of buy and burns. But there also has been times where prices have been higher and it's just a slow volume day on chain, and we're actually receiving less quantity of tokens. So it's very dependent on the market, it's very dependent on the human interaction, but you can actually break that stuff down in a very mathematical and ratio-based way. And we'll see what the future holds, right? Each time Pulse pTGC has gone even close to those numbers, we've seen volume numbers hit $1 million, $2 million days, which is 10x from here, right? And if you look at our volume right now, volume was up 10x at one point, but our price is only 3x lower than it was at its all-time highs, right? So ratio-wise, we were seeing higher volume numbers than price numbers, which would mean greater volume days is greater value of buy and burns and higher quantity of tokens. I do not know if it's going to keep expanding out that way. If pTGC keeps expanding out that way, if volume is increasing faster than price, this machine will become bigger than anyone is even predicting at this point. Every number I run, which equals unbelievable numbers, I put it rising up at even rates. If the volume increases faster than price, the numbers will start to become absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it will pretty much mean that the momentum, it will mean the momentum will become so large that the value generation of the machine increases faster than the price.
Are you guys open for some insight from some newcomers?
Absolutely.
So thank you for hosting this space again. I just want to share like what I've done recently, which is way back when, around the Pulse Chain Sacrifice, I assembled a group of about 30 family and friends of friends. And, you know, everyone went into the sacrifice first of Pulse and then Pulse X, I don't know how many years ago, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because people are starting to wake up now. And it's a very diverse group. I mean, there are young people there who really don't have a lot of money. There are traditional finance people that have a lot of money. There are middle income people that, you know, are really on edge about money. And so I'm getting really good questions from people. And what I can tell you is that, like, let's start with the person who's a traditional finance person that has like $100,000 worth of Pulse Chain assets in his wallet now that he didn't even realize that he had, right? He thought it was worth nothing, right? He thought it went to zero. He really did. And so there's like, so one thing, when people ask me, what do I do with it? I say, I'm not sure, right? You got to make this decision, but I am sending them to this space, and I'm sending them to Telegram to listen and learn. And like, I give people options. And so like I'll talk about and part of this is a question about UFO. What are the mechanics and how to understand it? Because I understand enough about pTGC so that I can talk about it, but I don't understand UFO. I know conceptually what it is, but I don't really understand the mechanics, and I don't understand how, decisions are made around, LP management type of stuff and what the correlation is with UFO. So that's my question. But the other thing that I realize is that like there are like two kinds of people who are coming to me. One wants stable yield. One want like, how do I use my asset to, yes, get into either a stable coin or some relatively safe volatile asset, and how do I create stable yield? So that's where I'm okay, go study pTGC, because it's designed to, to leverage the volatility of the market. There's a fee sharing system to it. Like, go study it, right? And then, and so this guy is studying it. He's listening. He's got a lot of really good questions. And he's, I don't know if he's here right now, but I told him to come listen to get answers to his questions. Like his last question to me was, and I said, look, he's like, well, what are the options? And I was like, well, on Pulse Chain, there really isn't a better option for like a blue chip like index. There's nothing else like it. And so you may want to just study. He was like, well, how about on Ethereum or on Sonic, right? And this is what he asked me because he's been studying. And I said, well, I don't know. I just don't know. But I did send him to Pendle just to look and to study at Pendle. And so I guess my question here is, what would your response be if someone like were looking for stable yield and potential, secure blue chip asset? Like, what do you say to someone who's comparing pTGC to Pendle? Like, what's the answer to that? Because honestly, I didn't know enough to answer him. I mean, I could have guessed, but I'm curious about that. And then the second question is, how about UFO? What's the short answer? Like, what are the mechanics and what's the unique distinguishing stuff about UFO? And I appreciate the forum here. Thank you.
Yeah, so as far as like yield with stability, I think pTGC is a great option for that, right? A lot of people just don't want to see their portfolio go down because I think that's what they've seen in a lot of crypto assets. So they're like, hey, I just want the yield, but not price go down, because if price goes down and if price goes down 50%, you got paid 5%. What's the yield matter? Where pTGC really stands out to me is it has yield built into it, right? So by owning the asset, you're technically just receiving more of that deflationary asset with every single transaction. But it's got a system put in place for maximum price appreciation. So if he is interested in a sustainable system, right? So it's a very math-backed system to where we're constantly engaging the idea of supply and demand, which forces the price upwards with yield built into the system. This is what pTGC is designed to be for users. And you do not have to overthink it. It's actually a very, very simple system. If this person was a sacrificer, he probably understands Pulse X, right? And Pulse X is a deflationary token. And at the time of sacrifice, there was an idea there that you can single-sided stake your Pulse X with no chance of impermanent loss and earn additional APY. Constantly having the situation to where you don't actually have to touch any of your initial Pulse X, and the system just pays you if you remain in the system long enough. pTGC is very much designed off of this model, right? It pays you APY just for holding. It's hyper-deflationary. It has constant demand due to its structure. UFO is actually very simple. It's a farm built on top of pTGC system. So people tend to think it's a lot more complicated, but for someone who doesn't understand LP providing, you can just hold UFO and earn UFO. and it's a hyper-deflationary model. So it's very, very similar to the pTGC model. They both generate revenue off of the same exact mechanic. It just gives the pTGC community the opportunity to also earn PLF yield off of farming and put some of the assets they had just sitting in their wallet to work for them and to also work for the UFO asset and the pTGC asset at the same time. So there's a little, it's designed to where it's rewarding you, but it's a symbiotic relationship. You're also rewarding the protocol by making it more deflationary and backing it by more assets, but also, you know, rewarding yourself because people are here in crypto to take care of themselves financially. So it's, you know, has an emphasis on that. But yeah, I don't think, you know, if he's looking for just level price and yield, like he could pair technically two stable coins together and get whatever yield that produces. But the problem is with that idea, like inflation's going to eat you up anyways, right? You're still in the same exact problem that you could just be in traditional finance. You technically don't even need to be here unless you're just looking for self-custody. The real opportunity with these assets is the price appreciation with mechanics that make them more sustainable than 99.9% of crypto out there. That doesn't mean that it can't go down, right? Like we see it going down right now due to things it's connected to, due to people taking profits. But there is a lot of mechanics and systems put in play to make it more sustainable than 99.9% of things that exist.
Right. So exactly. So I basically said he could pair stable coins and you could really get stable yield. And if that's what he wants, here are the options, right? And then I was like, well, here's the option on the Grace currency, right? And here's what it looks like, and here's how you do it. And then his first question to me, because he did listen to Richard around PulseX, and he went in very hard to PulseX because of this single-sided staking thing. And so I hadn't even thought that pTGC is a form of single-sided staking just in the mechanics, but that's good. And then could you expound a little bit on UFO? Now I get it. So it's a farm built on the LP web, right? And basically the farming token is, or the reward token is UFO. And how does that mechanic work?
Yeah, so real quick to answer the pTGC thing. Yeah, the model of pTGC has been very much modeled off of PulseX. So you can just hold pTGC and earn pTGC. You can take it a step further and stake your pTGC and earn even more pTGC. And you can take it even a step further and lock your pTGC for delayed gratification and additional APY. So there's 3 steps that you can take, but they all are single-sided staking models to where you are not at risk to a permanent loss. So a lot of the ideas, I love the idea of PulseX's design, especially with the single-sided staking model. The question always was for me is where is this APY coming from in a highly deflationary model? And that information was never provided. And if it comes out in the future, I'm beyond interested to find out, right? Is that coming from the DEX value generation and you get a portion of it or whatnot? I don't know. But if it does come out, I'm definitely interested to see. We solved it in a different way, and you can obviously see that in the pTGC machine. UFO is very, very similar to it, right? It technically is a single-sided staking model as well that's hyper-deflationary, but you just don't stake it. You can just hold the asset, and you earn APY just for holding. You do not even need to go one step further and put it in a staking contract or anything like that. You just hold it and earn. The UFO farm design is a brand new design that I've never seen anyone do before, because farms are usually designed to give a DEX value because you want to incentivize people to provide liquidity on your DEX, and you usually pay them out in an inflationary token for doing so. Where pTGC and UFO are not a DEX, so we don't need to give a DEX value. Our main goal was to give Richard's DEX's value. We're not building competitive DEXs. We actually build our protocols on top of PulseX. So our main goal is to give the UFO token value and to give the pTGC token value. And that's what really makes it different. So 100% of the farms always have UFO in it. So every single liquidity pool is integrated with UFO, making it so when users want to participate in the UFO farms, they have to hold the UFO asset. And how do they hold the UFO asset? Well, they have to buy it out of all the other existing liquidity pools, making it so they're pushing the price up if they want to contribute. And then if they do contribute, they're also double backing the asset because they backed the asset when they bought it. And now they back the asset again when they provide liquidity. And now when the market moves, they're generating the revenue. So it operates off of the same exact utility that pTGC does, except pTGC's liquidity is provided by the protocol and burn. UFO's liquidity is provided by the community putting the assets that they already own in their wallet to work for the protocol and system.
Can I have one more question about UFO? Because
Yes.
that's really good. Thank you. Yeah, so farming, and the yield token being a deflationary token is amazing and not just a dump farm token, right? That's big.
Correct. Yeah, just real
Right.
quick, because I think you think that from farming, you do not earn UFO, you actually earn PLS. So when you farm with UFO, you earn PLS. When you just hold UFO, you earn UFO. I just wanted to make that
Interesting. Okay. And so the farm yields PLS, which is amazing.
the most
because
liquid,
Right.
liquid token on chain.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the that was if the user can take that PLS and literally get anything they want in the most liquid fashion. They could go buy more UFO if they really love the UFO asset. They can go repay themselves some of the assets that they put into the farm. So let's say they put PulseX into the farm. And they're like, hey, I want to kind of re-get my PulseX back liquid. Well, then they can just swap that Pulse for PulseX. A lot of farms just pay you out in an inflationary token. And the only way they give value to that inflationary token is by pairing other tokens with that inflationary token in that farm. I don't really love that model because it's just an infinite dump token. And the only value backing it is coming from all the other assets that are connected to it. So it kind of is just like, hey guys, like we're just hurting the price here to where UFO's design, the PLS payout comes from the value generation from the liquidity web utility.
Yeah, that's amazing, honestly.
Yeah, Chiz, I have a couple things to say real quick on this. If you like.
Sure. No, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So with Pendle, you asked about Pendle, right? It's standardized yield generation from DEX activity. You're looking at depending, 4 to maybe up to 12% yield, but it's in stables, right? So you're getting it at stables. The difference with pTG system is that the potential for the yield to go up exponentially is there. So you don't have a set rate of APY coming at you because it's based on volume. But because it's based on volume, the amount of APY that you can be earning can massively outperform anything that you could be in with a fixed rate type of a thing. But the difference is that you're not earning a stable. You're earning the people who have been earning APY in pTGC have absolutely made a killing, because what it does is it forces you to stack the very thing that is being forced to go up in price over time frames. And then if somebody wants to sell that APY, they actually have to pay the system to do it, which reinforces the actual system and the token mechanics itself, right? So the revenue generation that's built into the system, which is basically a monetary feedback loop that's built into this, that doesn't exist in any of these systems where you basically swap into some kind of a wrapped token to get it yield in a stable. Because even though maybe somebody had the ability to swap that stable back into something else that was hyperdeflationary, a lot of the times they just don't do it, right? So the way that this system is designed, by being paid in pTGC tokens, which are miners of more pTGC tokens, but they're hyper-deflationary. And at the same time, the system is generating revenue and constantly is repaying the system. It's a feedback monetary loop that's never been done before. And you're much better off being paid in pTGC than in anything else. If I told you the amount of yield that I earned from the beginning that I've never sold and what it turned into in value because of the deflationary aspect of it, there's nothing out there that compares. And if you're looking at, like, for example, we had a hex whale come in not too long ago, and Prairie probably remember this. We had to actually run some numbers for him because he was comparing a hex stake in terms of yield. And at the time, they were basically coming in neck to neck. So if you took this much USD value of hex and staked it out this long versus this much monetary value and purchased pTGC and locked it out this long, this was the amount of APY that you're earning, right? And at that time, it was really neck to neck, but that was prior to Richard kind of doing what he did with hex and minimizing the yield. But the system here, it never changes in that sense. It's always constantly reinforcing this feedback loop. So even it's forcing you to stack the very thing that you should be stacking via data. But if you want to get out of that thing, it reinforces the system. So it's a hyper deflationary feedback loop that has just never been seen before, and that's why it's a superior system to anything like that.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's clear to me for sure. One other question about UFO, just because this is where I'm learning. Yeah, so how does the supply work? How is the original token generation event happen? Like what's the supply? Who are the holders? How does that all work? How much of it is in the LP? And I'm sure I could dig. I'm just curious. These are the questions that now I'm asking myself, and I need to study so that when people ask me, because now that I'm putting people to pTGC, they're like, "What's UFO? How am I supposed to make a choice?" I'm like, "I'm not sure yet." It's like I know the pTGC operates like this.
Some of them are good questions, but obviously, you're not going to be able to get some of those answers because it's a decentralized protocol. Nobody knows who owns what, where, who owns what LPs. It's the UFO side of things is something where these are LPs and PLP tokens that are owned by individual investors. These are private PLPs. They're not protocol owned like pTGC is.
Right. I guess my question is, what was the original generation? How did it start? And what's the supply and what are the deflationary mechanics? Just so that I get it that it's in all the LP pairs. Question is how did it generate and where is it now and what are the deflationary mechanics attached to it?
Yeah, so the model of UFO's distribution is very, very similar to pTGC's. pTGC's supply is 333 billion. UFO's is pretty much exactly 1 trillion. And both of these assets they mint the whole entire supply right at launch and put the majority of that supply into liquidity instantly as a fair launch to where anyone could go and purchase these tickers from, I think pTGC was at a 5K market cap at launch, sat within that range for days. Even months later, it came back down to very low numbers as well. UFO, a little bit different just because we already had a community behind it. So right when it launched, a lot of the community went and purchased it up. It got to like a $2 million market cap in a matter of a very short amount of time. But 100% of the supply is in circulation upon launch. And then from that point on, it's deflationary and less supply every single day. The deflationary nature of pTGC has a few things that burn it, right? So lockers who don't lock out 10 years are technically burning a portion of the supply every time someone early unlocks. You also have UFO buying and burning pTGC, which makes it deflationary there. You have some other amplifier systems by community members that have created tokens that are buying and burning, and then you also have pTGC that buy and burns itself, right? And it buys and burns itself off of the utility. UFO also operates in the same exact way, just a lot basicer. It's the utility of the liquidity web is buying and burning UFO, and UFO is also a completely deflationary asset as well. Every single day, there is less UFO tokens in existence, and it's going to be that way forever. Everything is in circulation. You can't mint them. Yeah, there's no staking where there's an inflation paid to stakers, nothing. It's max supply is in circulation now, and every transaction makes that max supply less.
And any further secret sauce, you have to pay him $1 million.
Totally. I mean, seriously, I just want to say, the more I learn that, I mean, this system is off the hook. It really is. And so props to you all, seriously. And just so you know, it's pretty easy to sell when people are already on Pulse Chain. It's very hard when people aren't on Pulse Chain, in my experience, just because right now so many people have, there's so much dissonance on Pulse Chain right now that the people off of Pulse Chain who don't really understand where the opportunities are, it's very hard to get people to come over here. But when people are already here, it's easy, really.
Chiz, if you've got an audience, man, I will work with you with these people. It's not hard for me at all.
Right.
It's not hard for me at all. I mean,
No,
and obviously you got to be an operator on multiple chains to speak the language, but they have to be open-minded. Outside of that, it's a superior product.
Yeah.
Who cares about the BS regarding Pulse Chain?
Yeah, totally. It's just that, in this market, it's part of the challenge of the culture of Pulse Chain. It's what makes it undervalued, in my opinion. It's just for most, not even normies, but most DeFi people right now are allergic to Pulse Chain, and it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with pTGC. It doesn't even have to do anything other than it's just the word of mouth about the culture. And so all I'm saying is that it's like an allergy. I think it can shift, actually. I think it is shifting. I want to participate in that shift because I'm not, I'm migrating value back to Pulse Chain because I see that it's undervalued. I'm just saying that for my network, which is, it's personal, but also across DeFi and different ecosystems, I just get a feel for how people think. And when they come to me, and people do come to me just because I'm a good confidant for my family and friends and others, and they come to me and they ask, and so I do point them to Pulse Chain. And my experience is, I would say, out of probably 50 people, only one. Now, this is where TitanX ecosystem is different. People on TitanX ecosystem have come from Pulse Chain, and so it's easy to get TitanX people over. Right, but it's not easy for mainstream, DeFi users. It's just like there's this huge impediment. Now, once the sentiment shifts about Pulse Chain, and it will shift. I don't know when, but it will shift. Once that shifts, then it's going to just be a flood, and that's where I think this community really can welcome people and educate people, because it's honestly it's the only community on Pulse Chain that is consistent and grounded and educating. And that's why I'm confident sending people here and say, look, listen, learn, study. And Mondo, I will send people to you. I'm just telling you that the resistance is stunning, honestly. As for someone like me who bridges in and out comfortably, but most people are not that way.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. For me, I'm looking for people that have an open mind, not that already are locked into a dogmatic position. So if you're already being religious about, operating on a specific chain for whatever reason, you're just intellectually dead. And so I just have to move on to the next guy. I never spend time trying to convince somebody of something because I can't make blind people see.
I feel
Like,
you.
if your
100%.
vision is not 20/20 and it's a little bit bad, I can be an eye doctor and give you some prescription glasses to make you see 10 times better. But if you're already blind, I'm not Jesus Christ.
I feel you. I'm just telling you that these are not stupid, blind people. These are my friends and my family. And the thing is that they are open-minded. I'm just giving you a sense of what the resistance is. And I don't think it has anything to do with pTGC. In fact, it is the primary magnet for pulse chain. I'm just saying that these are people who are open-minded and they just have choices now. And I'm just saying it's when the culture shifts, I think the culture shift is happening on pulse chain, but I do think that when that culture shift becomes the dominant sentiment, then it just becomes a lot easier given the hyper-competitive marketplace.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. I think that's a bunch of BS. And I'll tell you why. Because we're talking about global, worldwide, unstoppable blockchains where you can have 1,000 competing communities in the same blockchain. 10,000 communities on the same blockchain. And when I go to Sonic, when I go to the other communities, I see the infighting. I see people calling each other scams. I see people in Cardano that are calling Cosmos in a scammer. And I see it everywhere. There's literally no difference. I see people within inside of Bitcoin Core and in the Ethereum Foundation. They're fighting their asses off with one another about absolutely everything, how it should go. Should the block size increase? Should they not? Should they remain the same? Should they fork? Should they put in another EIP? It's the bottom line is that Pulse Chain and Richard Hart just beat the SEC in a federal court with merit and complete exoneration of all wrongdoing, including fraud. We have more clarity. All you have to do is print that sheet out and say, look, very few people have this. This guy's
I'm with you.
The industry might not like him because for the same reasons they don't like Trump, because the guy just doesn't stop telling the truth where it hurts. But that's opportunity. Now when I look at Sonic, for example, I went Sonic. I know what Sonic is. It's not some groundbreaking tech. Look at the price since January. It's down 80%. Like what's
I'm
so
with
great?
you.
And when I go look at the memes, it's like it's all memes that are just taking in price. It's the same shit, man.
I'm with you, 100%.
So it's about who is going to be given the correct information, because a blockchain doesn't have to perform well to make millions of dollars on that chain.
I'm with you 100%. And I actually believe that Pulse Chain is the #1 decentralized chain on the planet. I really do. And I think it's got huge upside. I'm just saying that for my people right now, the easy sell is and the easy offer is for people who are already here. And the other thing is that once, and it's not just sentiment around, like, I agree with you, like the regulatory certainty of the SEC is huge. Like, that's why Pulse Chain is so undervalued. It's stunningly undervalued. So I agree 100%. And I know what you mean about Sonic, and I know what you mean about all these others. And all I'm saying is that like right now, for me, studying and really adopting pTGC and beginning to adopt UFO and really understanding it, what I'm really saying is that this community is really a potential magnet, and it's a huge opportunity. That's what I'm saying. And the only resistance
100%.
that I'm, sharing is it's only a network of 50 people, but from that I can, and these are open-minded people. These are people looking for the right place. And what I will tell you is that one by one, and when they learn about pTGC, it is the thing that's interesting them. That's it. And that's really the message. I think it's it's just a reality too about the atmosphere around Pulse Chain right now that, and if you look at capital flow, for example, right, even though it may not be logical, if we watch capital flow and we look at what's happening, like, and what's been happening, that's like money goes where it's treated right. And so I'm not saying that money gets treated right other places. What I'm saying is it's time for capital to flow back in. I can feel it. This is why I'm studying. This is why I'm sharing. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate the dialogue a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate the questions. I would say this though too. The way that you get wealthy is to buy things when everybody else hates them. Is to buy things when everybody else is fearful to purchase them. It's not after it's gone up 50x, 100x. And after, I will say this, after Richard won the case so handedly, it really did make Pulse Chain that much less of a risk, in my opinion. And with the price of Pulse Chain down where it is, think about the fact that we're at a triple bottom post SEC win. After all the negativity, and a massive SEC, the biggest federal government coming against Richard in our community, the price has only ever gone right there. It's only ever gone down there. It's so what more can be thrown at the Pulse Chain network? Sure, more people can leave, but from a regulatory standpoint, from post-win, and from a price standpoint, it becomes much, much less risky than it ever was before, in my opinion. You don't tell people to jump into something, at tops. You tell them to jump into something at bottoms. Yes, it's a risk. Yes, it's a speculation, but I don't give a damn what you're in crypto, brother. If you're talking about Sonic, if you're talking about any EVM and anything on top of an EVM, it's all risk, man. 100%. You can lose all your money, all of them.
Yeah, I think Chiz, has some great questions and some great points too. I think when you're saying it though, you kind of explained what the opportunity is as you're explaining it, which, I think that's the most you can say to people sometimes. And like Mando was saying, if they're blind to the idea of coming over here, whatever you say to them isn't going to change it. But right now with pTGC being on such an undervalued blockchain, if this is the product you're trying to bring them to, you could say, hey, the blockchain sucked it down to this really great opportunity. Also, there was a little bit of sell pressure, but we know what the machine is. With just a little bit of movement upwards, it can do a lot of X's. And if you can get in before those X's instead of after those quick, like, let's say 5X, right? If you can get them in right in before a 5X instead of them buying like when the green candles start, that 5X can be a huge difference. That's the difference between a 10X and a 50X, right? A 50X can really start to change people's lives. That can be the difference between a 100X and a 500X. So the opportunity of buying the discounted zone, yes, it is fearful. Yes, there is still some things around Pulse Chain right now, but it does make a big difference to people's portfolios. And then, like Mando was saying, we have more clarity than we've ever had at these levels. And we do believe at some point the floodgates will open. And the idea is if you have people that are possibly interested in learning about pTGC and UFO, if you can get them in at cheaper prices, well, that obviously could multiply their portfolio that much easier. And there is value there.
Right, and so I just want to say one last thing and then I gotta go, and I appreciate the floor. Like the people that are a yes, right? I just show them how pTGC has performed versus Pulse, right? And so people already on Pulse, that's why it's so easy, is to say, hey, this really is an index. It really is fee sharing. and it has a grounded community and a Dow and a treasury. And like, look at the chart, it just outperforms. And that's in the early stage of this project. So anyway, it's easy for me to talk about it. I just want to share the one thing, which is when the sentiment shifts, people are going to flood into the pulse chain. That really is the point. So appreciate the floor and thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming up. Yeah, I agree with you. When I'm onboarding people to Pulse Chain, I'm actually, for the most part, onboarding them into pTGC if they're looking for the price appreciation, if they're looking for the large liquidity web and index of all the assets, if they're looking for deflationary tokenomics, if they're looking for APY built into the code. When you run through what pTGC is and you look at like a standard investor's checklist, pTGC has been designed to check all the boxes. So yeah, for me, when I'm onboarding the Pulse, I'm not really even onboarding in the Pulse because I don't think that's where their value is best spent. I do believe with pTGC and UFO, it is, personally, I believe this is the best place for them to park their value. And if you look at the pTGC chart, if you zoom out, it shows it. And again, that doesn't mean the future is going to show that, but all we can do is study the data and the mechanics and math behind these protocols. And once you study it, it becomes a very, very simple solution to me. Obviously, this isn't for everyone. There is different risks in pTGC than possibly the gas token, but I think the rewards are right there as well.
Good questions, Chiz. Appreciate you.
For everyone listening, we are on the 2-hour mark now. I got a little bit longer, but definitely want to try to wrap up the last questions or conversations. Banana, do you have anything on YouTube?
Nothing on YouTube. We've been chatting it up, but no direct questions. So, but if you are on YouTube and you got a questions, we are about to wrap it up. So type it in quick.
Anybody else want to come up and speak, have a question, make a comment?
I will be doing a presentation on the Grays currencies tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific. We do that every week. And then again on Wednesday. We'll have spaces again on Monday too, guys, at I think 5:30 p.m. Pacific. We have 2 spaces a week, 2 presentations, and then 2 voice chats. So 6 opportunities to interact every week.
That's awesome. Also, I'm still open for DMs. I'm taking one-on-ones for people who want a serious walkthrough, not just from the pTGC standpoint, but it's pretty much tailored to your specific position and your specific context. So if you want to do that on a one-on-one, I do calls over X or Telegram. Just send me a DM and we'll set up a time. Thank you.
I'm going on my first Poland spaces tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Poland community has their own pTGC spaces. I don't know if they've been super active with them lately or it drawed down just with the market drawdown, but they invited me to come on tomorrow at 7 a.m. and I'm just going to be chatting with them. I've never done it before on their spaces. They used to come in here, but they kind of took it over their own to their specific niche community, which I'm super beyond stoked about. So
Yeah.
they invited me to come on tomorrow, so I'm going to be going on there tomorrow 7 a.m. We're going to be talking pTGC and UFO with some, I would say fresh faces because they've been in pTGC for years now, but some people that don't normally hop in here, so some fresh new conversations, hopefully, which should be fun. If anyone wants to go over to there, I think usually they speak in their language, but obviously they're going to have to speak in English to speak to me. So, if anyone wants to join and add to the conversation, it should be a fun time.
tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard.
Yeah, those guys over there get it, man. They're a great group of people.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm excited for it. Like I said, I've never been on one of those spaces before. I don't know how they go. I think they're done in another language, so that's kind of why I've never made my way over there. But tomorrow they should be doing it in English, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it.
He's nervous because he hasn't spoke. He told me he hasn't spoken English in like 6 months. So he'll get some practice tomorrow.
Cool, guys. Yeah, if we don't have anything else, I don't have anything raising my hand. Anyone raising their hand, I'll feel free to just shut it down. But good spaces. Thanks for coming up, everyone. Banana, Mando, Chiz. Thanks for having the conversation, having the questions, and like Banana said, if you want to learn pretty much anything on pTGC, he answers all questions. You could throw a question in there and he makes time to go over it. He also does a full walkthrough on pTGC, UFO. He goes through the DAP, he goes through the basics, he goes through some of the more complex ideas. He even goes through some strategies as well on how he and other people play the pTGC game. So it's a great space in general. You got all the visuals, everything there with Banana on YouTube tomorrow. So if you're looking to learn more, feel free to go there. If you're someone who has individual questions and kind of wants a walkthrough by Mando just said he's offering free one-on-ones as of right now. When the bull run picks up, I'm sure those slots will disappear very, very quick with new people start coming over the pulse chain. So if you're here now, maybe take advantage of it. All right, guys. See ya.
Thank you, Zen. Thanks, everybody. I'm not gonna mic. Okay, Spaces is over. That was good Spaces. See you, TS Pedro. Crypto Wash. Hey, thanks for your questions. I already made that change too. I already made a change to that slide. What is their X handle for tomorrow? Like my X handle. Oh, for the Polish group, that would be Pulse. Give me a second. I'll pull it up for you. I got to go over to X. Give me a second here, man. Just click off of it right here. Pulse TGC. Hey, Paul. Replay gang, huh? That is Zen, the founder, and he will probably be posting from that account about the Polish group tomorrow morning. I'll send him a message to make sure that he does that. So, because you're going to be looking for it. So, yeah, man. And if you guys want, full presentation tomorrow. You guys ask any questions. I'm going to run through the pTGC and UFO. All right, guys. I guess that's it. Have a great day. See y'all.